Good morning, fourth graders. Today we are going to talk about rounding and comparing numbers. So I just want to start for a minute and I'm going to put some symbols on the board here. I'm sure you've seen these before. We have our greater than, our less than, and our equal to. And as we know that the greater number is always eaten by the alligator, right? Or the open mouth is facing the greater number. So I'm going to put two numbers, but I'm not going to read them out loud for you. And I want you to figure out which way our greater than, less than sign would go, or if they're equal. So take a quick second to think. Which number is greater in this case? Or maybe they are equal. So going through this process, I want you to think to yourself, how do you decide? How do you decide which number is bigger? Well, both numbers have a 9, they both have a 4, they both have a 6, they both have a 2. Technically, they're all the same numbers, right? So how do we decide which is bigger? Well, we know that we need to start in the greatest place value. This would be really easy if one number had 4 numbers and one number had 3 numbers. We would immediately know that 642 is smaller because it only goes into the hundreds and this one goes into the thousands. So we could just use place value. But when you have the same amount of numbers and they both have 4 numbers, you really have to go through starting in the greatest place value. So if I start in my greatest place value, I'm starting in my thousands here. Well, they both have a 9 in the thousands. So does that mean they're equal? No, if they're the same, you have to go over one more place value. So in this case, if my thousands are the same, I need to go to my hundreds. Kind of like you look for when you're rounding. Well, in this case, I have 400s. In this case, I have 600s. I know that 600s is greater than 400s. So 9,642 is greater than 9,462. I'm not even going to look at these last 2 digits because those are smaller. Those are 10s and 1s, and these hundreds are in the bigger place value. So I'm just going to stop there. I want to do one more example with you guys. And again, I'll pause and let you think about it. Used very similar numbers here, so you can practice what we were working on. All right. So in this case, same thing, go to your thousands. My 9's the same. So then I need to go over to my hundreds. 600 is greater than 400. So I know that 9,647 is greater than 9,467. But if I asked you to explain to me, why are 2 numbers equal? We've gotten really good at explaining which number is bigger, but why are they equal? So I'm going to put the same numbers back up that we started with. So if I wanted to compare them, I'd start in my greatest place value, my thousands. That's the same. So I'd go over to a smaller place value, my hundreds. Well, they both have 4s in the hundreds, so they both have 400. Okay, I need to go to my next smallest place value, which would be my 10s. Well, they both have 6 10s or 60. I need to go to my next smallest place value, which would be my 1s. But they both have 2 1s. So if they have the exact same numbers in the exact same place values, then you can say that they are equal because they have equal amounts. Even if they both have a 9, a 4, a 6, and a 2, it matters what place value they hold. They have to represent the same amount in the same place value for them to be equal. So now we're going to look at a word problem asking us to compare two numbers. So I always like to underline what is important. This helps me keep track of what I'm focused on. It helps me kind of eliminate some of those extra fluffy words that I don't really need. So we're going to go through and we're going to kind of underline and circle some numbers that we need. So we have a stadium hosted both a concert and a sporting event. The concert had 101,835 people in attendance. So I'm going to go ahead and underline that. The sporting event had 101,538 people in attendance. Which event had more people in attendance, and how do you know? Well, in order for me to compare these, it's a lot easier if I put them next to each other. And then I can go through each place value. So I have 101,835. Okay. And then over here I have 101,538. And this one is for, sorry, it's a little harder to write on the computer. And this one is for the sporting event. All right, so same thing. I start in my largest place value, 100,000, 100,000. Okay, well, they're the same, so I go to my next smallest place value, 0 10,000s, 0 10,000, still the same. Go to my next place value, 1,000, 1,000. Oh my gosh, these are very much the same. Now I need to go to my next place value, 800, 500. Oh, well, I'm going to stop there because those are different numbers. I know that my 800 is greater than my 500. So I'm going to go immediately here. It doesn't matter that there's 35 here and 38 here. I stop at whatever place value, they become different, and figure out which one is greater. And I know that 800 is greater than 500. So if they said, how do you know? It's important you answer both parts of this question. I would say, I know that this one, the concert, I'll put a little box around it really quick. I know that the concert had more people in attendance because 101,000 is equal to the other 101,000, but 800 is greater than 500. Or 835 is greater than 538. So now we're going to move on. And we're going to just do a couple practices here. It doesn't have to be many. So we're going to do, let's just do 2 together. So same thing here. We start in our greatest place value. In this case, I have a 10,000. Over here, I have a 10,000 also. But then this one becomes easy because I immediately have a 2,000 here and a 1,000 here. So this 563 doesn't matter at this point. This 987 doesn't matter at this point. We're going from greatest to least. We're not going to jump any further once we find our difference. So sure, 987 is greater than 583, but we already stopped because 2,000 is greater than 1,000. So it's easy when you see that the differences show up quickly, but sometimes they don't show up quite so quickly. So let's go down here to number 7. I have 700,000, 700,000. Move on to my next smallest, 0 10,000s, 0 10,000s. Move on to my next smallest, 5,000, 5,000. Go on again, we're still the same down here on number 7. 100, 100, the same. 2 10s, 20, 2 10s, 20, 6 1s, 6 1s. Well, if they have the same exact numbers and the same exact place values, then we know they are equal. We're going to go do a little bit of rounding now real quick. All right, so we've learned how we're going to compare, but comparing is actually very important for rounding. Because rounding, you have to know which number is in which place value, just like you do when you are comparing. So if I wanted to say we are rounding to the nearest 10,000, I want to make sure I'm in the 10,000s place. So I need to make sure I know, okay, here's my ones, my tens, my hundreds, my thousands, my 10,000s. This is the place value I am looking at. I am looking at this one, I'm starting at this one, and that's my jumping off point because that is my 10,000th place. I'm not going to do anything to this one yet because I don't know which direction to go with it. So I need to look again, just like I did with comparing numbers, to the next smallest place value. So because I'm rounding to the 10,000s, I start at my 10,000s. I go to my next smallest place value, which in this case is my thousands, and it's a 1. I know that if it's 5 or more, I'm going up. If it's 4 or less, I'm rounding down. So in this case, I can stop right here. When I was comparing numbers, I sometimes had to go a little further into my place values, but in this case, I can stop right here. So I'm like, I have 11,962. So one way you can think about this is, I'm going to kind of hide this guy for now. I'm going to kind of hide my 10,000s place. I sometimes like to draw a box around this. So I'm rounding to the nearest 10,000. So I think to myself, I have 0 and I have 10,000. Is 1,962 closer to 0 or closer to 10,000? Well, I know halfway would be 5,000. And my 1,962 is nowhere close. I think that would fall probably like maybe right here. So if I want to think about it in my head, this is definitely closer to 0 than it is to 10,000. If you like to think of a number line, that's one way to think of it. Or what you can do is you go to your 10,000s place, look to your right. I know that it's 4 or less, so I'm going to round down. I'm going to get rid of your little number line here. So this would actually become a 0. Oops, sorry guys. And the good way to remember this is everything after the place value you're rounding from becomes a 0. So I was starting at my 10,000s place, right? Once I've rounded, everything after that becomes a 0. Because those place values are now rounded to the nearest 10,000. I'm not going to round it with hundreds, tens, and ones connected to it. I just want it to the cleanest nearest 10,000. So I have now figured out that 11,962 is closer to 10,000 than it is to 20,000, which makes sense. So it would round to 10,000. Now, if we were to do our nearest 10,000s with 99,067, we do the same thing. We'd start here in our 10,000s. We'd go to our next place value. Ooh, that's a 9. So I know that's going to send me up. But how do I do that? Because I have a 9 here as well. I just can't add one more. Take a second to think, what would I do? Well, just like you do an addition, you'd have to carry over another group, right? So this 9 rounding up would actually become a 10. So my 90,000 here is going to become 100,000. So 99,067. I've learned that my 90,000 needs to round up because of my 9 here. So 90,000, if I need to round up to the next 10,000, I'd be at 100,000. And the same thing goes, you guys, for rounding for any place value. It's always, always, always the same. So you always go to the right, look to the next smallest place value, and follow the rule of 5 or more round up, 4 or more is less. So you just have to know your place values. So let's say I did 2,501. If I said round it to the nearest 1,000, you have to know my thousands are here. I look to my next smallest place value. 500 would round me up, right? So my 2 actually becomes a 3,000 because everything after that becomes zeros. And actually what's funny here is that 501 is just barely over the limit there. So if I was to do, let's do the same one. Let's do 2,501 rounded to the nearest 100. It's the same thing, but you just have to start at the hundreds place value. This guy here will just hang out. He's in the thousands. We don't need him right now. We go to our hundreds place value. We look to the right. Ooh, there is nothing to round me up there. So this guy would just stay at 2,500. This case, I was focusing on the thousands place value. This case, I was focusing on the hundreds place value. Continuing that rule of rounding up of 5 or more, and with both of these, with comparing and rounding, you're always looking to the smaller place value. If you need any help, guys, today, just shoot me a Gmail and we can talk about it.